Hi, we're going to be working with the user interface. I just want you to have the very basics of it. This is the splash screen for the latest and greatest version of Adobe Photoshop CC 2019. It's a little buggy. You don't need it for these lessons. Learn is an area where where Adobe gives you tutorials. If you go home, this is what it looks like. You can open an existing file or create a new one, which we're going to do. We'll go to the default. I'm going to call it interface. This is where you can title it. You can also title it when you save it. Interface 001, because I'll have 1,000 of them, right? Or 100 of them. The width is 7 inches. The height is 5 inches. It's landscape mode. 300 resolution, we'll talk about later. RGB color, we'll talk about more later. All monitors are RGB. It defaults to a white background, but you have lots of choices. So let's create that. And this is your user interface. It's called a workspace. And under Window, there's workspace. They have some default workspaces like painting. See how it changed every panel, every window, it changed everything to what they think you're going to need if you're making a painting. We'll go back to essentials right now because I find that the most useful for me. The other thing I want to show you, there's areas I want to show you. The toolbar, the options bar, the drop-down menus, the fly-out menus, which are these little hash marks up here. I don't need libraries. I need the space. So there's this little X where I can close it. But let's say I need it back. This is one thing you need to know. If I need it back, I go under Window and Libraries, and there it is. So every panel is under Window, and they finally, after years, I think a few years ago, made it alphabetical. What do you know? Anyway, there are things about panels. You can make them into icons. You can pull them out with this horizontal arrow, and you can see what the icon stands for, which I still am not sure if I know all the icons. I know a lot of them. So if you need space, like you're on a laptop, you must have collapsed it before you can pull it all the way to icons only. See, there's colors, swatches, properties, adjustments, layers, channels, all this stuff, paths. You can customize all this. You saw that custom paint space, right? I just want you to understand that these are totally customizable. Let's say I want colors and swatches. If I want both of them, I have to grab it by the top. Now, apparently these are all hooked together. So that's not what I want. I'm going to hook them everything back here. I need a vertical line. So I could probably do this by collapsing it. And there's a little tiny thing here. It looks like it's barely visible to me. So I don't know if you can see it on the tape. But now I was able to pull them out by this little thing that mimics a bar. When you can see the whole thing and they're not all hooked together or docked, like if I pull this out and I see just a horizontal bar, I can have both of these fly around together but not be grouped together. If you look under here, there are default groups, but it doesn't really matter. You just do whatever works for you. I could redock this over here. Go over here. See that? Vertical line. Now it's docked over there. Now it's squished my workspace. But if you feel better having things on the left, screen left versus screen right, you're good to go. I've gotten so used to this setup and I like it up here, so I'm going to wait and see if I can, it managed to move it with the toolbar. So instead of clicking up here, it's subtle. You'll see it on your screen. There's a little tiny hash marks. Bleh. And I'm going to talk about tools in a moment. So I'm going to put my colors and swatches back here. See, again, I want to make sure I don't have all of it because I'll put them all together. I want it above it. So now if I open it up, there's color and swatches, properties and adjustments, layers, channels, and paths. So important about the toolbar, you can make it 2 columns or 1. If a tool is selected, it's dark gray. But the biggest deal is up here, the options for each tool. Every time you pick a different tool, the options bar changes. Sometimes it changes a lot, sometimes it changes a little. So I'm not going to do all of them, but I want to show you another thing that they have. If you hover over the tool, Photoshop has added these little mini movies for the main tool. They can get annoying after you get to know them, and you can disable it. I'll show you how to do that. There's these tiny little arrows that say, hey, there's something else living here. So the artboards live with the Move tool. With the Marquee Tool, there's 4 versions of Marquee tools. And almost all of them have other tools. Some of them make total sense. Some of them, it's kind of like, did they figure out where to put that? Did they know where to put that? I think it's the eyedropper. Yeah, under the eyedropper, there's a few eyedroppers, but there's the ruler tool and the note tool and the count tool, and I guess they just didn't want to add another tool. Down here you have your main color chips. If you go to color thing, you can see the main color chips. These will always reflect these. These 3 dots, it's edit toolbar. You can make custom toolbars. I thought that was really cool at first. So far I haven't used it much. You might. Everybody's different. Again, you can collapse. I find it easier when I want to move it out of my way to have a little fatter move bar at the top, and then I make it skinny again. I'm going to pull layers out because I'm going to work with layers next with you guys. I like to have a bigger thumbnail when I teach. This is where the flyout menu has panel options. Sometimes the flyout menu, some of the commands and options are in the drop-down menus, which are up here. Sometimes they're not, and vice versa. With panel menus, I like to have the thumbnail nice and big when I teach. And I try to keep it as big as I can even when I'm just working because it's easier for me to see. If I unlock it by clicking it, because if you scan something in or make a new file, it'll lock it. It makes all this stuff available. You can lock it again, and it makes a lot of stuff unavailable. But when we get into layers, I'll talk more about that. You can change the color of the user interface. In Photoshop on a Mac, preferences are here. If you're on a PC, it's under the Edit drop-down menu at the very bottom. So here's the interface. You can make it lighter, whiter, blacker, dark. There are reasons to change it sometimes. I've gotten used to this, so I'm going to pretty much stick with this for these lessons. I'm going to, right now we're not going to use the history panel. I'll close that. And I'm not going to use the paths panel, so I'll close that. And I think I might want to dock channels with the layers, and I want layers to be a little shorter. So now when I use channels and layers, and by the way, yes, I can make the channels bigger too. Panel options, large channel, and there are 4 channels, and we'll get more into that later. Any questions? I'm available all weekend. Please call, set up a desktop session or a phone call, and you'll have all my information. Thanks.